Thank you. All right. So I think in the previous lecture, I think yesterday we just started talking about the continuous space, right? Uh, okay. So we started talking about continuous space, and we also saw what the Hamiltonian is, right? In the continuous space. So Hamiltonian is an operator which will give you the energy. Okay, so if you write down the Hamiltonian operator, so you know the Hamiltonian operator, then if you write down the apply it on the wave function, then it is going to then basically it is an eigenvalue eigenvector equation, and so the eigenvalue turns out to be the energy. Okay. So I think when we start actually solving the real problems, we will mostly be using the this equation, and this equation is known as the Schrodinger equation. So we were looking at it in the continuous space. So let's continue with that for some time. So we have already seen what this thing is, right? This is the commutator of the x operator with the px operator. So the x operator with the momentum operator in the x direction, right? So this commutator, we already know the answer for this is IH cross, right? This is going to be IH cross. But we would like to see how would this be if we apply, if this is done in the continuous space. So how will we solve it? So first we apply this operator to a wave function. So the wave function, let's say it is psi of x. So we apply it to the wave function. And because this is a commutator, you have to expand the commutator. So the expansion of a commutator, as you already know by now, is x into px minus px into x. So that's what we will do here. So x px psi of x minus px x psi of x, right? So this is what we get. Now in the continuous space, right, px is given by minus IH cross dou by dou x. Okay, so px is anyway given by this term minus IH cross dou by dou x. So we are, and x operator is nothing but your small x, right? It's just the continuous variable x. All right, so now we have to, for x px psi of x, this two operators written in the same order has to be applied to psi of x, the wave function. So that is simple. You will get, this is just a number minus IH cross. So this comes outside. And so you'll get minus IH cross x into dou psi by dou x. This is simple. Now you also have to find out px x psi of x. So if you do px x psi of x, again you have to maintain the order of the operators. So first you will have minus IH cross dou by dou x, then you will have x, and then you'll have psi of x. So basically this dou by dou x is now acting on the full function, this function which is x into psi of x. Okay, so you have to do the do the standard how you do differentiation of a product of two functions, and so you'll get so minus IH cross into psi of x is outside, and then you have dou x by dou x. So dou x by dou x gives you 1, so I have not written 1 here. So it's just psi of x plus x into, right, you are applying chain rule essentially. So then you have x into dou psi by dou x. Okay. So now you just, substitute these two terms in this equation. What will you get? You get x px minus px x of psi of x. You're going to get minus IH cross x into dou psi by dou x plus IH cross of into psi of x plus IH cross into x into dou psi by dou x. So this term and this term obviously gets cancelled, and you are left with IH cross psi of x. Okay, so this psi, so ultimately this commutator turns out to be IH cross. Okay, so commutator x px turns out to be IH cross. So this is the way. So if you're given an operator, okay, which is in the continuous space, and you want to find its commutator or something, then just assume that that operator is acting on a wave function, and then fully compute the full commutator for it. You will find out the value of the commutator. Okay, in this case, x px commutator gives you IH cross. All right. And similarly, you can do for ypy and zpz, right? All of them will give you IH cross. All right. Then in the continuous space, so we have already seen what is a scalar product in a discrete space. So in a discrete space, this is just the ket, sorry, this is the bra and this is the ket. And you basically do matrix multiplication, right? So, but in the continuous space, what you have to do an integral. And you have to do psi, bra psi is nothing but conjugate of psi. And ket psi is just psi of x. And then you integrate it from minus infinity to infinity, right? Over dx. So this we have already seen, right? We already know, like, this is essentially the norm of psi of x, right? Basically the probability of finding this particular psi of x, right? Probability that the wave function has the value x. All right. Or in this case, because it goes from minus infinity to infinity, it means the probability that the wave function is somewhere in space. Okay. Then this is the expectation value. Okay. Always remember, expectation value is written in this form, where x is, say x is some operator. In this case, I've just taken it to be the x operator. So x operator is in continuous space, it is just small x, which is the x variable, continuous variable. So the expectation value of x would be this kind of a sandwiched type of formalism. And so you just have to write the whole thing. So bra psi is just psi star of x is x, and psi is psi of, and ket psi is psi of x. And then integrate it over dx from minus infinity to infinity. This is the representation in the continuous space. Then you similarly you can find the expectation value or the average value of d by dx. So again it is the same thing. You have psi star of x into d by dx into psi of x, and integrating from minus infinity to infinity over dx. Okay. So now, because this is a d by dx term, you can see how to, how do we, simplify this further. So in order to simplify this further, we can just do integration by parts. So if this is our u and this is our dv, then we know that we'll get uv minus v du, right? So that's what we'll do. So if we do that, we see that u into v. So v will be just psi of x. So psi star of x into psi of x, going from minus infinity to infinity. Okay, so because the wave function vanishes at minus infinity as well as infinity, so this term becomes 0. Okay, so always remember that wave functions will vanish at minus infinity and plus infinity. So this term is going to become 0. And then the second term is v du. So v is just psi of x, right? So again, you have to maintain the order here. Okay, so this order is going to be important. So you'll have to write it as du into v. So you have du, which is d into psi star of x by dx, into v. V is psi of x dx. Okay, so this is integrated from minus infinity to infinity over dx. So ultimately, what you're getting is this form. And if you write it in terms of the bracket formalism, then you will get, basically this is just d by dx psi in the bra side, and on the ket side you have just psi, and there is a minus outside. So essentially what this tells us is that d by dx operator is anti-Hermitian. Okay, because if you take it, if you apply it to the other side, if you apply it to this side, it is fine, right? There is no change. But if you apply it to the other side, this becomes a minus d by dx when you take it inside. So this is an anti-Hermitian operator. So d by dx of dagger is equal to minus d by dx, right? If it was Hermitian, you would have got d by dx whole dagger equal to d by dx, right? There would not be any sign change here. Then you could say that it is Hermitian. But because we have a sign change that is happening here, we say that it is anti-Hermitian. Okay. So this part remains the same, but there is a sign change. That's why it is anti-Hermitian. Okay. So these are just some small calculations, or you can say derivations, but it might be used in some problem or the other. Okay. So that's why you should know. So one thing is you can first check whether these operators are Hermitian or not. So again, remember these are continuous operators. So since these are continuous operators, you have to apply them onto a function, onto a wave function psi of x, and then see what is the answer that you get. Like simplify it fully and then see what you get. Okay, so that way you will know whether the operator is Hermitian or not. All right. Actually, you should calculate the expectation value, right? And then you will be able to say whether it is Hermitian or not. So if you do the expectation value, you will be able to figure it out. And then evaluate the commutator x square in d by dx and e power ix and commutator of e power ix and p. So this again, it is in the continuous space. So you have to use the continuous wave function, which will be psi of x, right? That's how you'll have to do it. Now this is an interesting problem, and this is in the discrete space, as you can see, right? So this is a wave vector A. So when an operator A acts on the wave vector, you get root of A. This is just a number, right? This is an eigenvalue eigenvector equation. So this is just a number, root A, and then you get the previous wave vector, which is A minus 1. Okay, and similarly, when A dagger acts on the wave vector A, you get root of A plus 1 into the vector, the next vector, which is A plus 1. Okay, and the scalar product of A dash and A, right? The scalar product of the bra A and the ket A, it is basically the delta, Kronecker delta. Okay, so it means that this is orthonormal, right? That is what it means. That this state vector A, this is orthonormal, right? So you need to calculate these, and these are very simple calculations. Okay, it might take you like 10 seconds or something to calculate this. So just check and see what you get. And this kind of thing, this kind of formalism, we are actually going to see in the next, maybe not next, or maybe the 4th chapter, we will actually see what this formalism actually means. This formalism is actually for solving a particular type of problem. Okay, but we will go there later. Right now, you can just do the small problem here. Okay, so today I'm only going to do just a few problems and then we will end the class. So this is one of the problems which I found very interesting. So consider a system whose Hamiltonian is given by this, right? This operator. This is the Hamiltonian operator. Okay, so as you know, this is an operator and this is also an operator. And so the addition of the two operators will also be an operator. So this is your Hamiltonian operator, where alpha is a real number. So alpha is just a number. This is a real number, so it's not complex. So you don't have to take alpha star or anything. This is just real, having dimensions of energy. So alpha is a real number having dimensions of energy. Phi 1, phi 2 are normalized eigenstates of a Hermitian operator A that has no degenerate eigenvalues. Okay. So first problem is A a projection operator? So how will you find, sorry, is H a projection operator? So how will you find H? First of all, to find whether something is a projection operator or not, there are two conditions it should satisfy. One is the H dagger should be H, right? Then you can say and H square should also be equal to H. So let's see. So for H to be a projection operator, we need to satisfy these two conditions. H is equal to H dagger and H square equal to H. So what is H dagger? So if H is given by this, then H dagger would be this whole dagger. Okay. So this whole dagger, basically it will interchange the ket and bra. Okay. So phi 2 will become bra. Sorry, phi 2 bra will become phi 2 ket, and phi 1 ket will become phi 1 bra. This is what will happen. And similarly for this one, right? So essentially this phi 2, which is a ket, it becomes a bra, and this phi 1, which is a bra, it becomes a ket. Okay. All right. So this becomes your, and this is same as the original one, right? It's just that you have this phi 1, phi 2 term here. So this is the same because this is addition. The order does not matter. So this H dagger is equal to H. So first condition is satisfied. What is the second condition? Second condition, it should be H square should give you H. So first you have to find what is H square. So you just, you just write this operator twice. So alpha is just a number, so you can take alpha square straight away. And then this operator needs to be written twice, and element-wise multiplication while keeping the order same. Okay, so order is important. So you keep the order same, but you do element-wise multiplication. So what have I done here? I have done this term multiplied with this term first. So I'm getting 5 1 5 2, 5 1 5 2. And 5 2 5 1 is what? Okay, we'll see that later. So similarly, I can do for, I think I've done this term with this term. So you have 5 1 5 2, 5 2 5 1. And similarly for the other two terms. Now some condition is given for us. They have said that phi 1, phi 2 are normalized eigenstates of a Hermitian operator A. Okay. So first of all, if phi 1, phi 2 are normalized eigenstate, then this scalar product of phi 1 with itself, so phi 1 scalar product should give you 1, and phi 2 scalar product should give you 1. So this term phi 2 should give you 1, and this term phi 1 should give you 1. Okay. And second thing is, they have said phi 2 and phi 1, these are eigenvectors of the Hermitian operator A. So there is a theorem about Hermitian operator, which we have learned earlier, but I'm just stating it here again. So for a Hermitian operator, all of its eigenvalues are real. That is one. And eigenvectors corresponding to different eigenvalues are orthogonal. Which means that because phi 1, phi 2 are eigenvectors of a Hermitian operator, the two operators are orthogonal to each other. So this scalar product phi 2, phi 1 is going to be 0, and this scalar product phi 1, phi 2 is also going to be 0. So now applying all these conditions, what you get, right? So because these are normalized, you have seen phi 1 is 1, phi 2 is 1. And because these are eigenstates of A, phi 1, phi 2 is 0, and phi 2, phi 1 is 0. So scalar product of this is 0. Okay. So ultimately you are left with only H square is equal to alpha square into this term. Okay. So because there is an alpha square here instead of just alpha, it is not really equal to H, right? There is an extra number here. So it means that H is not a projection operator. Okay. Is this clear? Any doubt up to this point? Okay, let me know if you have any doubts. All right. Now, second question is, are phi 1 and phi 2 eigenstates of the Hamiltonian operator? Okay, only thing that has been given to us is that phi 1 and phi 2 are eigenstates of some Hermitian operator A. Okay, we don't know what that A operator is, but we know what the H operator is, and it is asking us whether phi 1 and phi 2 are eigenstates of the H operator. So how do we check? Okay, so basically it is asking us if you apply H on, right, if you apply the H operator on the eigenstate on some state phi 1, is it going to be like an eigenvalue eigenvector equation? Okay, so that is what. So you should get some constant into the vector itself. So that will satisfy the thing that phi 1 and phi 2 are eigenstates of H. So first thing what we have to do, we have to compute what is H phi 1. So let's see what is H phi 1. So this is the H operator acting on phi 1. So acting on the ket phi 1. So you have phi 1, and then what have I done here? Sorry, this needs, okay, there is a typo here, but anyway. So you have phi 1, and then this should be phi 2, and this should be phi 1, right? This phi 1, I'm taking it here. So please correct this typo in your notes, okay? So this phi 1, and this should be phi 2, and this should be phi 1, okay? And this will, and because we know that phi 2 and phi 1 are orthogonal to each other, they will be 0. This scalar product will be 0. And here you have phi 2 and phi 1, and then again phi 1. And we know that phi 1 and phi 1 is orthonormal. So scalar product of phi 1 with phi 1 will give you 1. So what are you left with? You get h phi 1 is equal to alpha into phi 2. I mean, it would have been, right, because you get h phi 1 equal to alpha phi 2. If it was alpha into phi 1, then you could say that phi 1 is an eigenstate of h, right? Because then it would satisfy the eigenvalue eigenvector equation. But here you're getting h phi 1 is equal to alpha into phi 2. Okay, so this is, you're not getting back the same vector. So then this is, then phi 1 is basically not an eigen vector of h. Okay. Similarly, you should do for h phi 2 and see whether phi 2 is an eigenvector of h or not. Okay. So you can do it in the same manner and proceed. All right. So in this question, right? So this is the question starts here, right? Question 1 I have written. So in this question, I have done some of the steps, but some of the steps I have not done. Like this part I have not done, for example, right? So you will have, so these parts will be part of your homework. Okay. So next, calculate the commutator between h operator and this phi 1 operator. Okay. So what is the commutator between these? So you can just apply h with phi 1 minus phi 1 into h. Okay. And then if you do the matrix multiplication, right, you will get the answer. What have I done here? Okay. So from the previous, here we calculated h phi 1 is alpha phi 2. So you can just add that here, right? So you'll get h phi 1 is alpha phi 2, and then this one is phi 1. And here again h phi 1 is phi 2 into alpha. So this is the answer that you will get for the other one, okay, if you solve this. So if you do that, you will get alpha phi 2 phi 1 minus phi 1 phi 2 alpha. Okay. So this is your answer for the commutator of h and phi 1 phi 1. The get phi 1 multiplied with bra phi 1. Okay. So this is, so similarly you can do for the other one. Okay. You can calculate the commutator for h Hamiltonian operator with phi 2 operator. Okay. So this is how you will proceed. Okay. Now next question is find the normalized eigenstates of H. So let me know if you have any doubt, anything you didn't understand up to this point. I'm doing these problems, okay, in this class because this is our last class for this chapter. So I'm just doing the problems so that all the concepts get revised and then everything will be more clear. Okay. So next question is find the normalized eigenstates of H and their corresponding energy. Okay, so we know that phi 1 and phi 2 are not eigenstates of H. Okay, but we know that phi 1, phi 2 are eigenstates of some other operator. Right? This we know. So we want to like find some eigenstate of H. So how will we find that? So we'll assume that this function psi, which is written in terms of the linear combination of phi 1 and phi 2. Okay, we'll assume that this function psi is actually an eigenstate of the Hamiltonian operator. Okay, so if you apply this, so if you apply or if you have the operator H act on psi, what will you get? So you have, this is the operator H and this is your vector psi. Okay, so if you do the computations using the orthogonal and orthonormal properties, you know, you can simplify all of that. So phi 2 scalar product of phi 2 phi 1 will be 0, scalar product of phi 1 will be 1, and so and similarly for the phi 2 term. Okay, so finally you will get alpha into lambda 1 phi 2 plus lambda 2 phi 1. Okay, So if psi is an eigenstate of H, then this is what you are getting. So let's call this equation number 1. Next, you need to find normalized eigenstate. So let's assume that psi is normalized. Okay, so what is the condition for psi to be normalized? It has the scalar product of psi with psi should be 1, right? So let's do that. So if you take bra psi, you will get lambda 1 star into phi 1 plus lambda 2 star into phi 2. Multiply it with lambda 1 phi 1 plus lambda 2 phi 2. So this should give you 1. So again, you can apply the orthonormal and orthogonal properties, right? And you will finally get, so lambda 1 star into lambda 1 gives you lambda 1 square, right? It's just the norm of lambda 1. So you are going to get norm of lambda 1, right? Plus norm of lambda 2 gives you 1. All right. So these two are the two equations. So one equation is that H psi is giving you this. And the second equation is lambda 1 square plus lambda 2 square is giving you this. Now, if H was an operator where, no, sorry, if psi is a state, or if psi is the eigenstate of H, then it should give you back some number here and the same vector psi, right? That is how you can say that psi is an eigenstate of the Hamiltonian operator. So it should give you some eigenvalue. So in this case, how can we get that? How can we get back the psi? We can get back the psi if lambda 1 and lambda 2 were the same. Okay, so if lambda 1 and lambda 2 is the same, then it won't matter, right? Then because psi is equal to phi, so lambda you can take it outside and you will get phi 2 plus phi 1. Okay, and then it will be the same functions, same vector psi. Okay, so if lambda 1 and lambda 2 were the same, then you would actually get back this equation in this form, at psi is equal to lambda psi. Okay, and then the second condition is lambda 1 square plus lambda 2 square is 1. So we are assuming that lambda 1 is equal to lambda 2, so we can put 2 lambda 1 square is equal to 1. So lambda 1 square is half. So lambda 1 turns out to be plus or minus 1 by root 2. And this is the same as lambda 2. Okay, so this way we have found now the these numbers. What is the eigenstate psi? So there are two eigenstates here because there are two eigenvalues, right? One is as in not eigenvalues, but there are two ways, two numbers or two possible numbers that lambda 1 and lambda 2 can take, right? One is 1 by root 2 and the other is 1 minus 1 by root 2. So the eigenstates of psi become 1 by root 2 into phi 1 plus phi 2, or it is 1 by root 2 into phi 1 minus phi 2. So these are the two eigenstates of the Hamiltonian operator. So now if you apply H, now if you do H psi is equal to some number into psi, you will actually get alpha. Okay, because alpha was already there. Okay. So this plus or minus alpha is actually the eigenvalue of H, and eigenstates of H are these two. So we can call it lambda plus, and this one we can call lambda minus. So these two are the two eigenstates, and alpha and plus alpha and minus alpha are the two eigenvalues. Okay. Please, read this, try to do this problem yourself, like go step by step, you will understand it better. Okay. So only if you work out the problem, you will know what I'm talking about. Okay. Next question is, assuming that phi 1 and phi 2 form a complete orthonormal basis, find the matrix H representing the basis. And then find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of the matrices and verify that it is the same as that obtained in D. Okay, so we have, so assuming that phi 1 and phi 2 form a complete orthonormal basis, find the matrix H. Okay, so what do you mean by forming a complete orthonormal basis, right? It means that, first of all, phi 1 If phi1 is orthonormal, phi2 is orthonormal, right? And this forms the complete basis, meaning there is no other vector for the operator H. There are only phi1 and phi2. So with phi1 and phi2, you should construct the full matrix for H, right? H is an operator, so it will be a matrix, it will be a square matrix. And because phi1 and phi2 are the complete orthonormal bases, meaning the dimension of the matrix is 2, the dimension of the basis is 2, so the operator H will be a 2 cross 2 matrix. Okay, so this is what we mean. All right. So since phi1 and phi2 are orthonormal, all these conditions are satisfied. This we already know. So now how to find the 2 cross 2 matrix? Okay, so the 2 cross 2 matrix will be something like H11, H12, H21, H22. So we have to find it. So how do we find it? So H11 is nothing but the expectation value of H with the state phi1. Okay, so if you do this, you'll get phi1 H phi1, right? How do you get the expectation value? This is the formula for expectation value. So you have phi1 H phi1. So H phi1 we already know gives you phi2 for this particular problem. Okay, this is only for this particular problem. With here, a particular form of Hamiltonian has been specified. That's why we are getting this. Otherwise, this is not true in general. So don't assume that any Hamiltonian multiplying with phi1 will give you phi2. That is not the case. For this particular problem, we found that this is the answer. So H operating on phi1 gives you phi2. So phi1, phi2, scalar product of phi1, phi2 is 0 because phi1 and phi2 are orthogonal. Similarly, H12 will be phi1, H sandwiched between phi1 and phi2. Okay, so H phi2 gives you phi1. And so the scalar product of phi1 with phi1 gives you 1. So we now know that H11 is 0, H12 is 1. The other two are remaining to be found. Okay, so you can find it. Okay, do it in the similar manner and find what is the answer. Okay, and then write down the complete Hamiltonian matrix. Now, if someone asks you to find the trace of this matrix or trace of the operator, how will you do? You just have to add up the diagonal terms. Okay, so the diagonal terms are H11 and H22. So just add them up. That will give you the trace of the matrix. Okay, so trace of H is nothing but this. If you write it in terms of the expectation value, then H11 is expectation value of H for phi1 and H22 is expectation value of H for phi2. Okay, so this is how you can get the trace of the matrix. Is this clear? Let me know if you have any other questions, otherwise I'll proceed to the next problem. Okay. So your homework is to complete all the missing steps of question number 1. So I have only done a few things. So I want you to complete all of this, whatever is remaining. Okay, so you should complete the full problem. I want you to write down the full problem, okay, and complete the missing parts and write down the solution for the full problem. Okay, so this is your homework for this question. Let's look at another question, question number 2. So consider these two matrices, okay, A and B. Okay, so and first question is find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of A and B. And denote the eigenvectors of A by A1, A2, A3, and those of B by B1, B2, B3. And then they are asking, are there any degenerate eigenvalues? So first of all, what we mean by degenerate eigenvalues? We mean that degenerate means that two or more eigenvalues are the same. That is what you mean by degenerate. Okay. So they are asking if two or more eigenvalues are the same here. Okay, that is also one of the questions. So you know how to find the eigenvalues of the matrices. So I'm not really going into that. And you also know how to find the eigenvectors. Okay. So once you found the eigenvalues and eigenvectors, you can check whether for A, whether any two eigenvalues are the same. And for B also you can check whether any two eigenvalues are the same. Okay. If they are same, then you call them degenerate. All right. So this you can do it yourself. Okay, so I'm just telling you the final answer. So eigenvalue of A turned out to be 0, √2 and -2. And eigenvectors turned out to be these three column vectors. Okay. Remember that these are normalized eigenvectors. Okay, so we have normalized them. Similarly, for eigenvalues of B, we found B1 is 1, 0. Eigenvalues are 1, 0, and -1, and eigenvectors are these three column vectors. So because these all three eigenvalues are different, here also all three eigenvalues are different. So we say that eigenvalues are not degenerate. Okay. All right. So none of the eigenvalues are degenerate. Next question is, show that each of the sets A1, A2, A3 and B1, B2, B3 forms an orthonormal and complete basis. So how do we show that something is orthonormal? We have to do a scalar product of A1 with itself, that should be 1, and scalar product of A1 with A2 should be 0. That is how we say it is orthonormal. So here we have done that, right? So we need to show that AIAJ, scalar product of AI with AJ gives you delta AJ, and scalar product of BI BJ gives you delta IJ. So this is how we show it is orthonormal. And then they also want us to show that it is a complete basis. So how will you show it is complete basis? So we have seen. Actually, this should be the I operator. Yeah. So this should be your I operator. It shouldn't be 1, but anyway. So in order to show that it is a complete basis, we need to sum up from j equal to 1 to 3. Why from j equal to 1 to 3? Because there are only 3 eigenvectors, right? We got for A. So from j equal to 1 to 3 and this operator, just sum it up and you should get 1. Okay. So if you sum it up and you get 1, right? So actually not 1, you should get the I operator because this is an operator, right? So you should get the I operator. Similarly, if you sum up the BJs from j equal to 1 to 3, you should get the I operator. Okay, so please change this typo. This has to be the operator I and this also has to be the operator I. All right, so this is your, so this is what we need to show. So you can calculate, right? So to show orthonormality, you need to calculate the scalar product. So you can calculate these scalar products. Basically, you have to do the matrix multiplication. So multiplication between the row vector and the column vector. See if it gives you 1. If it gives you 1 for each of the terms, A2, A2 and A3, A3, and B1, B1, B2, B2, B3, B3, then it is normalized. And second, if A1, A2, all the cross terms, if you get it as 0, then it is orthogonal as well. So ultimately, both these conditions imply that the functions are, that these wave vectors are orthonormal. Okay. Second thing is we need to show completeness. So for completeness, you need to calculate these operators. So you know A1 is given to you, right? So you need to calculate A1, A1 plus A2, A2 plus A3, A3. This is what it means. Okay. So you know what A1, A1 is. A1 ket is a column vector. A1 bra is a row vector. Okay. So you can calculate this, you will get some matrix. Similarly, for A2, A2, you will get a matrix. For A3, A3, you will get a matrix. You have to add them up. What do you get? You get the identity operator, right? The 3 cross 3 matrix for the identity operator. That's it. Similarly, you should do for BJs as well. So if you get the identity operator after adding up all this, then you know that these set of state vectors are complete. Similarly, if the same thing for B as well. So these set of state vectors form the complete basis of the operator B. If you adding up these operators give you 1, or sorry, give you I. Okay. So this is what you need to show. And then they're asking, okay, find the matrix U of the transformation from the basis A to B. So you want to transform the basis A to some new basis B. How will you do that? So here, this is where you get to unitary transformation. Okay, the transformation from A to B. So from the theory of unitary transformation, we have this. If you have an AN, you can always write AN as I, identity operator acting on AN. Okay. So what is identity operator? Because all the B's form a complete basis, the identity operator can be written in terms of the B. So you have Bm acting on An. Okay, so you have Bn An. So Bm An becomes Umn, right? Some number which is Umn into Bn. So this gives you your complete, gives you your new basis. So what is the transformation matrix? The transformation matrix are all the elements, is the matrix composed of all of these elements. Okay, so Umn, which is scalar product of Bm with An, are the elements of the matrix U. And here we know that m goes from 1 to 3 and n also goes from 1 to 3. Okay, so what is the U matrix then? U matrix is B1A1, B1A2, B1A3, B2A1, B2A2, B2A3, B3A1, B3A2, and B3A3. Okay, so this is how you do your, you get the matrix. So all you have to do is you have to calculate the scalar product of these. Okay, so for one I have calculated, you need to calculate for others. So B1A1 gives you this is basically matrix multiplication between the bra B1 and the ket A1. So you got minus 1 by root 2. Okay, this is for the first element. Similarly, you have to find for the other elements and write down the complete unitary matrix. Okay, so the homework here is, right, homework is complete all steps of question 2. So all of this is part of question 2. I want you to complete all the steps, starting from the finding the eigenvalues, finding the eigenvectors, and doing all the other steps as well. So complete all the steps and finally find the unitary matrix. Okay, and there was another part to this problem which I'm not giving you for homework because I think you've already shown this for other problems. But you know, like you can see that because this is a unitary matrix, it will satisfy the condition that U inverse is equal to dagger, and so U dagger U will give you 1. Sorry, will give you the I matrix. Okay, so because this is a unitary transformation, so U is a unitary matrix. All right. Now just one small thing. There are some formulas related to the Dirac delta. So in yesterday's class, we saw the Dirac delta function. When we are dealing with continuous space, instead of Kronecker delta, we write down the Dirac delta function. Okay, so Dirac delta function is basically this function. So in this case, x0 is 0. So here we have delta of x equal to 0 for x not equal to 0. So this is the Dirac delta function. Okay, so there are some formulas associated with it. For example, integral of f of x into delta of x minus x naught or from a to b over dx gives you f of x naught. So f of x naught if x naught is between a and b and 0 elsewhere. Okay. Similarly, for integral from minus infinity to infinity for f of x dn. So this is the nth differential of delta of x minus a into dx. This will give you minus 1 power n dn f of x by dxn at x equal to a. And delta of r minus r dash gives you delta of x minus x dash, delta of y minus y dash, delta of z minus z dash, which is going to give you this. Okay. So this is your some of the formulas associated with the Dirac delta function. Then yesterday, I think yesterday or today, maybe today we looked at the momentum operator in the position space, right? So momentum operator, we saw it was for px, it was minus ih cross dou by dou x. But now we can write x operator also in terms of px. So that formula is ih cross into dou by dou px. Y is ih cross into dou by dou py, and z is ih cross into dou by dou pz. Okay, so these are the formulas for writing the position operator in momentum space. So these are your homework problems corresponding to Dirac delta function. So evaluate the answer for these, and that's it. Okay, so I'm stopping here. This completes our chapter. And so your assignment submission is on Monday. Monday, probably 5 p.m. will be your assignment submission. And then Friday of that same week, you are going to have your quiz. All right. So please be prepared. Please submit your assignments on time, because once you do the assignment, you will be prepared for the quiz. Then you don't have to study further, right? Like you will be more or less prepared. So please do the assignment, sincerely and properly. And that way you will also have notes for your study material. Okay? All right. Thank you so much.